everybody. Welcome to episode 46 of What Are Your Thoughts? And today is July 1st, 2020, and we are coming to you live from CentralValleyTalk. And today we have guest Dez Martinez. She is the founder of We Are Not Invisible, which is here in Fresno, California, and she is an advocate for homeless people, for the homeless community in Fresno. And she is a leader, and she does a ton to help out people who have been forgotten here. So thank you for coming. We really appreciate it. And here on What Are Your Thoughts, we like to talk about all kinds of things that are going on, and we want to know, what are your thoughts on the current climate of the United States as far as the protests go, the coronavirus? What's your take on everything? Masks, that's such a debate right now. So,
well, I believe in the virus. Once you meet people, or you know people in your life, your personal life, that have it, it's different. You know, I always thought, it's going to go away, and I think a lot of us thought that. But it gets serious when you personally know people that have it. And so that takes a totally different turn right there.
Since you have done work with the homeless, how have you noticed the kind of coronavirus impacting the homelessness, or what you just seen in your own environment?
Well, with regards to the coronavirus and the homeless, we have fortunately only had two. We can't figure out why the homeless are not getting coronavirus.
Maybe they're the lucky ones.
And yes, a lot of us think, because they build up an immune system. If you've seen what they have to live in, you build up an immune system. If you've eaten people's leftovers in the dumpster for years, you build up an immune system to so much stuff. So I think their immune system is built up so much, and then living outdoors constantly in an open space, maybe that's their protection.
That's an interesting point you just brought up.
Honestly, I've never thought about
it. Is that the case with many other diseases too, like the flu, possibly with anything else, or specifically with coronavirus, where their immune system is strong enough to where it's like it doesn't even affect them?
No, they suffer a lot of other diseases out there from the filth. So there's a lot worse diseases right now that are amongst the homeless that are worse than the coronavirus. You have valley fever, you have a lot of lupus out there, you have a lot of infections where, the infections are so bad where the maggots are actually keeping them alive.
Really?
Yes, because the maggots eat the
virus.
Yes. So there's a lot of that going around. You would never know. People limping down the street has walking with a leg with maggots.
Just to give kind of like maybe like a statistic, how many would you say out of 5 homeless people would you say are infected with something?
4.
4? And that can be over a multitude of things, right?
Yeah. You have you have all kinds of, heart conditions, cancer. People are on dialysis out there. People are getting transplants and getting put back out onto the, they're having like coronary operations, and immediately they're released back out into the streets. There's so much that people have that are already suffering out there. Homelessness is it's just the invisible world to a lot of people.
How are those ailments even dealt with if you're homeless? If you're homeless, how do you even deal with those ailments?
You survive them. Every day is just, you get up, I would say the first year of homelessness is probably your toughest.
Okay.
The first 3 months you've learned everything that you need to learn, because there's a tax, there's a lot of violations going on amongst people out there that are homeless. But you learn. Either you get with a group and you stay safe, because when you're solo out there by yourself, then it's more dangerous to be alone.
Yeah.
But you learn within a year of how to survive out there, and they're used to the abuse from the community. They're used to the abuse from the law enforcement. They're like children that are abused. And so they've suffered for so long that they just get used to it, and they turn their head anytime you say something negative to them. Like a lot of people say, get a job. Why are you telling somebody to get a job when you know they don't have a shower?
Yeah.
They don't have nowhere to sleep at night. So instead of telling them to get a job, give them a job.
Yeah.
Or shut up.
Yeah.
Plain and
Give them
simple.
access to something that can help them get a job
Yes.
instead of just saying, "Hey, go fill out an
Yes.
application." Like that's really
Come
gonna.
mow my lawn.
Yes.
But, you know, hey, there's an alley that you guys are residing in. How about the community and the neighborhood gets together, and then they make this money pot, and then offer it to the street family members. Hey, man, we're gonna pay you to keep it clean. We'll bring the garbage bags. You know, we're gonna bring out food and all this stuff. Come on.
Or if you don't even want to give your money, there's bottles that you can give, literally plastics that they
yeah.
would literally all the time you go.
So
liquor
they
store.
don't have to dig in the dumpster. That's what I
100%.
do at mine. I do not throw my cans in the dumpster or anything. I know I have a lot of the street family members around my neighborhood. I'll put the bag out for them. I will put the bag out because I don't want them having to dive in the dumpster and get it.
So I'm glad you brought that up. Is there anything that we can do just to kind of make things easier on the homeless so they don't have to go dig through the trash? Maybe we can leave our trash out for them or leave things a little bit organized or anything we can do like that? Or
I actually have a couple of baskets that I sit by my front porch. And they know that if there's something in the basket, that they can have it.
Yeah.
You know, and this has prevented a lot of thefts from the porches of all the neighborhoods at the apartments. And it's building a relationship with them to say, hey, I know you're suffering. This is the only thing I have, but this is something for you. If there's something in this basket, you're more than welcome to it. But I also have a freezer outside my door, and it's filled with water constantly.
Nice.
So everybody that is the street family members are more than welcome to come up and get the cold waters out of the freezer at any time.
Nice.
Wow,
So
I'm sure they really appreciate
Yes,
it.
yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So before we get kind of back into your own beginnings, your street family, can you like expand on that for a little bit?
Why I call them street family, or
Just the whole background of it. What is it? Where did the origins of it? Where did it come from?
Well, being homeless, you don't like being called homeless, you know, because when you say homeless, everybody thinks negative, dark, dirty, smelly, dingy, worthless, jobless, addict, alcoholic, mental illness. So we wanted to try and change things up. When I became homeless, it was so different than what people tell you about the homeless, because it was the most amazing group of people, and you become their family. So when all else fails and your blood turns their back, no matter what the situation is, when you end up out here, there's so many good people, and they will guide you in the right direction. They will make sure you're fed. They will share their blankets with you. And that's what street family members are. I've never witnessed in my life the amount of different cultures that are homeless, religions and stuff. I would see atheists eating out of the same bowl as Christians.
Wow.
You know,
That's
you
interesting.
see
That is, yeah.
KKK eating with the blacks.
Wow.
And this is This is my homeless world.
You don't even see that in prison.
No, it's beautiful. I tell people they don't see it because they don't involve themselves inside of it.
Right.
They want to stand on the outside and judge. But if you actually go to a feeding or you go to a potluck in the park, you will see the amount of street family members that are all different races, creed, religions, and they all eat together. And that, I think, is the most beautiful thing that I see in the homeless world. Is there people that disagree? Yeah, because they're like your brother and your sister. Do you fight with your brother and sister?
Yeah.
So do they.
Right,
You know,
right.
but let some house individual do something, and you got the whole clique on you.
Wow, that is very interesting. Okay, so last night I was on the website, We Are Not Invisible website, and I was watching I believe the 24 hours.
Yeah.
I forget the rest of the title.
It was just
But
24 hours. Homeless
Right.
Affairs,
Yes. And that really opened my eyes. And your encounter of you walking down the street and you saying that you were so hungry, and I believe you noticed a friend, and you guys walked towards each other, and he put his head down, and you pretty much called him out after he just walked past you. How did that make you feel? Because just watching that, you can tell that's very dehumanizing, and it makes you feel like you are just nothing. What came after that?
Wow, how did it make me feel? I think it's traumatizing because it still hurts to know that you can know somebody for so long, and the moment you become homeless, you are invisible. Because he didn't see me, He just seen a figure pushing a cart.
Like most people
That was
see.
it.
Yeah.
Homeless people.
Yes. So as soon as people see that, it made me realize that, oh my God, somebody that I know, personally know, I see every day at school, they put their head down and they walk past me. And, you know, I try to play it off, excuse me, sir, you know. And then when he just kept on walking, I was pissed because I was like, you serious?
Yeah.
I was like, are you serious? And I think that's what got his attention because I got upset. And when he turned around, he was like, Dez? He's like, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. Like, what happened? You know? And I was like, you know what? You proved my point.
Right.
Like, I've been saying it how invisible homeless is. I'm like, here, you just seen me the other day.
Wow. It was that recent?
Yes.
When you say school, did you guys go to like what, Fresno?
So when I was homeless,
Okay.
I was going to CMAC.
Okay.
So when I did the documentary, it was to open up the eyes and show and share with the people what it was like to survive.
Right.
Just one day.
Right. Yeah. Just one day.
Yeah, just one day.
Yeah.
In homelessness on the streets and stuff. So it made me feel like, you know, people need to open their eyes and realize who's on the other side of the basket, because you never know who it is. You never know who it is. You never know what kind of talent it is or what happened to them, how they became homeless, why they became homeless. You know, addiction is a disease. Alcoholism is a disease. And hoarding is a disease. And that's what you see out here, is hoarding. And that comes with mental illness. Homelessness can cause addiction and mental illness. The longer you're out here on the street, the more you lose it. And I don't think that's what people understand. They like to judge people. If you're housed and you're an addict, they made a TV show out of it. You know?
Yeah.
Hoarding. They made a multi-million-dollar TV show out of it. But that's okay because those were housed people already hoarding. So let's help them.
Yeah.
A community, a village came together. People are all on TV watching this show because they're interested in these people and these families. That's bringing ratings and money into these, you know, these stations. Are they giving back to that type of cureness for mental illness on hoarding? What is the difference between a housed individual hoarding and an unhoused? You know, what happens to the unhoused is they have no home, they don't have no roof, they don't have no door, they don't have no walls. So you see everything that they do.
That's such a great point.
Yeah.
We have addicts, you know, that are living indoors, but you don't see them
Right.
because they got a door to shut. You know, same with alcoholism. We've had people in politics, and I brought this up before, that have been alcoholics, known alcoholics, DUIs, and they're known, you know, they were up there in leadership. So I was like, that was okay for him. But a homeless man having a beer on the sidewalk because he woke up on the sidewalk is like the worst thing. People take a picture and say, oh, look, this whole man's drinking a beer. So what?
Let him do his thing.
He freaking survived one night here. It's 24 hours. Give him a beer. Give him a beer. What is wrong? You go home and you have you a beer. You leave your work and go to lunch and you have your wine and go back to work. You're drunk driving.
That's true. Yeah.
Leave that man alone and
Yeah.
give him a beer.
Yeah.
Who cares?
Can't disagree with that.
Now you bring a mental illness among the homelessness, which I feel like that gets overlooked a lot. Where do you think that stems from? Not necessarily the mental illness, but where do you think the fact that we overlook it? Where do you think that stems from? Do you think it's just like they're homeless, so let's not even worry about them, or?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. When I say they're invisible, if there was another word for invisible,
Irrelevant.
you add that on, because homelessness isn't invisible. Nobody wants to pay attention, but they want to complain about it. They want to, they don't want to help, they want to hinder. You know, I don't care where they go, as long as they're not in my back alley. I don't care where they go, as long as they're not in front of my business. How about offering them a job to sweep the front door of your business? How about offering them $10 or a meal to watch your parking lot? You know, so mental illness, a lot of the mental illness out here, we have a lot of them that go for safety, and they're usually doorways of businesses. And, oh my gosh, this person is in front of my door. Well, you know what? Guess what happened at 2 o'clock in the morning when people came, these youngsters came that were hitting the streets that have a home that we call night crawlers. They're just the bad people that are housed that come out at night to commit crimes. And they prevented them from busting your windows to your business. But you want to show up at work and complain about the person that was there, not knowing what they might have done to protect your business.
Or set up something like spike benches
And
or
then as soon
something
as
like that.
you get mad at them and tell them to leave, Then your business gets broken into because they're no longer there. You blame that person that was there. Oh, that homeless person that used to be. I know they did it. I know they did it because they were living there. They were there until I pushed them away. Now they're mad.
Yeah.
No. Stop blaming the homeless. Mental illness is huge. You have. Okay, we had a lady that was raped the other day by 5 men.
She was homeless?
Yes. But she thought it was okay.
Because
She thought that's what was supposed to happen. They told her that's what she's supposed to do.
and what happened to these men? They're
still out there.
So
It's not news about anybody getting raped in the homeless world, men and women. It's nothing new out there. It happens every single day, all the time.
So let me ask you this, from not a homeless perspective, from just a regular citizen's, well, just from a non-homeless perspective. What do you think causes someone to attack or even harm a homeless person? Because for someone who just thinks normally, it's just like, let them do their thing, leave them alone. If they need help, help them. But to go as far as rape or even attack them, like, what do you think is even, what do you think causes that? Like, because they're not bothering them. The homeless person wasn't bothering those 5 men.
The homeless individuals, the street family members, are the easiest prey. They're the easiest ones to blame for a crime, and they're the easiest one to put a crime on. You have so many that get raped, hundreds a year that get raped. They go cold. It's like, why do they go cold? Why are there so many unsolved rapes here in Fresno, California? When you're homeless, what was the question? I'm sorry. It's my train of thought. I had so many things going through my head.
It was just more of just, why do you think that?
Oh, because people feel like homeless individuals don't have families. Like they don't have a brother or a sister or a grandma or an aunt. And, that's why they attack them, because who cares about the homeless? Once they end up dead and stuff, we have 7,200 homeless die a year here in Fresno, California.
Wow.
Nobody's saying anything.
No.
You know why? Because they don't care. They don't care. 7,200. If we had 7,200 dogs dead on the street every year, Fresno would go crazy.
Mm-hmm.
If we had 7,200 housed elderly dying on the streets in front of their house, Fresno, it would be something. If we had 7,200 gang shootings a year in Fresno, California, it would be on news.
Right.
I agree.
But this is 7,200 homeless individuals, so they're so invisible. People they just disappear. They disappear. They're there, but they just don't exist in people's minds. So I think they're really easy prey to people because they feel like they're either runaways. A lot of them are. They're sex trafficked. They're elderly abused, where they'll have their checks coming in, but a family member's got their money and they're sleeping outside on the streets. Oh yeah, there's a lot. There's a lot going on in the homeless world.
Now, the relationship between the homeless and the police, how do you feel that is? Because earlier I was showing Mariah a video of this man named Kenny Thomas in 2011 who was murdered by police. And that's just one instance from 2011. And we can imagine all the incidents that don't get reported. So how do you think just the relationship between those two parties are?
There is no relationship.
Fair.
There's no relationship. In the homeless world, one uniform is all uniform. And I say that because when you have abuse from a man in uniform constantly all the time, you tend to, like children or domestic violent relationships, you stay and you allow it to happen because you're so used to it. The man in blue is supposed to protect. Yeah. But we have here in Fresno, California, called Homeless Task Force. That is basically a freaking mean army.
See, I didn't know that. What did you know?
The Homeless Task Force is it's a group of 5 people, Fresno police officers that are already on the payroll, and they're just in that group. And the only thing that they do is go to homeless encampments.
And what are they supposed to do?
Well, the $9 million that they get every single year says that they're supposed to address the homelessness. Oh, yeah. Address. Homeless Task Force gets an extra $700,000 a year, which is probably going up $800,000 in 2019, so it'll probably be up higher this year. But let's say $700,000 to $800,000 a year for the Homeless Task Force. I question that because they're already officers. So
Why
what are
do you
you
need the
doing with
extra?
that extra money? Because they're already paid.
Right.
So I don't get why you need to take another $700,000 to $800,000 and put it into the Fresno Police Fund and Market Homeless Task Force. Okay, then you have. So imagine, let's estimate $12 million a year the Fresno Police Department gets to address homelessness.
Okay.
Okay, and what they're supposed to do is go out there and say, hey, these are the resources that we have here in Fresno. Would you like me to call for a bed or a shelter? Go ahead and call for a bed or a shelter. If you want to go into drug treatment, they're supposed to transport them to drug treatment. Sanitation gets $800,000 a year to go out and clean up Fresno. Have you seen Fresno cleaned up from
No.
homelessness?
No.
This is why we need to go to city council.
Starts
$700,000
at a
to
local level,
$800,000 a year can be a pilot program for the homeless that are living on the streets to clean up the streets while they're living in the streets.
That's a good point. That probably should tell everyone out there how messed up and corrupt things are. You have 700 extra. It's not even like a base pay for them. It's 700 extra $1,000 that they're getting. And let's just say you give them 600,000. That 100,000 go to homeless. That can go literally to homeless people, and that can make a difference. That can kind of eradicate the problem of homelessness. Instead, you kind of just want to.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's
I mean,
backwards. I don't get it.
that's millions and millions of dollars.
Yes.
But as far as the police and the homelessness, there's a lot of abuse. I mean, I tell it straight. People don't like to hear it. They wouldn't do that. They wouldn't beat them up. They wouldn't do this. They wouldn't take them. They would.
We
Oh,
know
yeah,
that
we hear
is
that. I hear that
not
all the
true.
time. The homeless wouldn't. I mean, the police
Right,
would never
right.
do that. I'm like, really? And you will see the amount of abuse, even verbal. And I even went to Dyer 4 years ago. And I got into it with him because I was like, your police officers are abusing my street family members, and I'm sick and tired of it. And he promised me 4 years ago that he was going to look at every single officer's body cam and that he would get back to me.
He would get back to you.
I'm
I'll
still
call
waiting
you
Dyer.
later with that.
I'm still waiting, and I know where you're going to be working in
Jerry
December or
Dyer, what are
January,
you
so-
doing? Exactly. Okay, and with him being the mayor pretty soon,
Uh-huh.
what do you think
Mayor.
he is? What do you think he's going to do about this? Me, nothing. Just get cops to be more forceful, more brutal with homeless people.
I really hope that he flips the switch on all of us when he does get in that seat. From past experience, yes, everything that you said. We are expecting him to come in with full force army. He wants 20 FPD officers on the force. Imagine we're paying $9 million a year for 5 officers to address homelessness. How much are we going to pay with 20?
Right.
How much are we going to pay with 20?
Upwards of $100 million.
And what are they addressing?
Exactly.
What is the addressing? Let's give the definition of addressing, because y'all ain't doing nothing
Right.
but jumping out of your truck and yelling at everybody. People that have PTSD, mental abuse. You have not one woman on the homeless task force.
Really?
So you got these men that get out and just that, you got a gun, you got a badge, you got a taser, you got a stick, you got a knife. I mean, come on, dude, you're equipped.
Right.
And you jump out at a woman that's been fleeing domestic violence, because we have no room for domestic violence. All domestic violence women go back home because they flee, and unfortunately our only shelter we have here for DV clients is full all the time.
And see, that money that the city council is putting out there to go into this task force, that money can be diverted to making more room for these instances, for these cases, for these situations. A new center can be built. But yeah, it just goes back to the point that they really don't care. And I saw a figure, which I believe $650 million was allocated. It was an emergency homeless fund or aid from the state. I believe that was last year. And I think that money was supposed to be allocated throughout the state of California. And the mayors were supposed to do something about the situations. It doesn't seem like anything has really happened with that money. Where do you think that money is going?
Well, here we go. Because I know I've been saying it. We have a lot of shelters here that hire their friends and their neighbors and all this and that. We have people in directors' positions that should not be in directors' positions, period. no director, and I'm sorry, people will sit here and argue with me that are probably getting paid that money, $140,000 a year for a director at a homeless shelter. Are you freaking kidding me?
Wow.
That's more than the mayor makes.
Wow.
$140,000 a year. So they said, oh, well, the average rate of a director at a homeless shelter is $100,000 a year. For what?
Right.
For what? And nobody that you're the director of the shelter knows you. So how are you getting paid this much money every single month to be a director at a homeless shelter? You know, the money is just being thrown at other people. It gets finagled into other accounts, and we can use it for this. And you know, we're gonna say we're gonna buy 1,000 trash bags, but they bought 1,000 trash bags for the shelters and not for the outreach team. We're gonna go ahead. We need $1 million to employ 5 people to outreach and stuff. Well, where are they at? Because they're in their office in the AC. Because I'm out there 365 days a year, 24/7. Anytime you'll see me out there. And I rarely run into any outreach workers. In the past 3 months, ain't nobody been out, but they getting paid.
So let me ask this, not to get too, I guess, conspiracy into things, but do you think what you're speaking of is simply like negligence on their part, or do you think it's more of like a thing up top where it's designed to almost like a cycle, if you will, where homeless are meant to stay homeless?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Oh yeah, I definitely, and I'll tell anybody, just prove me wrong. I've always said that, you know, I'm totally convinced now, after being out there 5 years, that Fresno does not want to end homelessness, because millions and millions and millions of dollars comes into Fresno every single year for homelessness. Okay, not only that, you have in every single organization, they have like 48 organizations here that deal with homelessness.
In what, Fresno?
Yeah.
48?
Yeah.
Oh, and what's being
I was about to say.
And what are the names of these organizations?
Yeah.
Okay, so you have like part of the FMCOC. So part of the FMCOC is like a board, and it's all the organizations together and stuff. And so there's like 48 organizations. Was the last time that I had heard. It might have gone up because other people are jumping on the homeless bandwagon. There's a lot of money in homelessness, and they're jumping on it. So the list is probably more than that now. But money comes into Fresno, right? That money has to go to FMCOC because they're going to go ahead and disperse the money. So FMCOC will get they get their part because they're doing a job. They're dispersing it. Now money has coming out of the homeless fund. And then you have to be a part of that FMCOC group in order to get any of that money that comes into Fresno City.
Okay.
So if I don't go and pay my yearly dues for this organization committee,
you don't get
I cannot get no money for my organization that the state or the feds send in.
So it's almost like you're forced to care about homeless.
You got to pay to care.
Yeah.
You got to pay to care. So I think the system is set up for failure only because imagine the amount of people that are employed at, so Turning Point. You know, the homeless division that they have at Turning Point, which is 2 of the shelter triages. They have a bridge housing. They have other little programs
it's
that
a
they
church
say they do.
Too, right?
Yeah, it's a church, right?
No, Turning Point is Central California.
Okay,
it's an organization.
Okay.
It's a nonprofit organization. So they have, if we don't need homelessness, Fresno Rescue Mission will be gone. Well, not really, because it's a drug treatment program. They're not telling you, and I keep saying it. Poverello House would be gone.
Wow.
Those people would lose their jobs. Every single shelter that we have here in Fresno, California will lose their jobs. You'll have hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people unemployed. In the mental health department, you have a department inside there that deals with homelessness. All those people will lose their jobs. Can you imagine the amount of people and the amount of jobs and the amount of unemployment that will go up if they ended homelessness here in Fresno, California? Not to mention the millions and millions and millions and millions of dollars that the city gets every single year to end homelessness.
Wow, this is like so corrupt and so
This is the information we need.
yeah, it's a cycle.
Yeah.
It's a cycle and it's never ending, and it sounds like it's just to keep people down in that same cycle. You mentioned Poverello House, the documentary I was watching last night. You said that there's a reason why people do not want to go and stay at the Poverello House. What is that reason?
Okay, so now after learning for so long, the Poverello House, everybody says Poverello House because that's the main place down
Right.
in that area, besides the Fresno Rescue Mission, and that's a drug treatment program, but I'm not going to sit there and go there. So the main place for the homeless to go was the Poverello House, which sits on Santa Clara Street. Santa Clara Street has 3 other streets, you know, G, E, and F, and that whole area leads into Chinatown. So when people say Poverello House area or down at the Pov, it could be E Street, F Street, G Street. It can be Ventura. It can be Santa Clara. So we always say, well, what block?
Okay.
And stuff. Now I continuously say Santa Clara area because it's not the Pov. They had a director there, Cruz Avila, $145,000 a year to direct a place that he was never freaking at. I'm sorry, I don't like the guy.
Hey, no.
He's
Say
fake.
it. Yeah, tell it.
He's fake. I'm sorry. But for the Poverello House area, the POV used to be really bad. So they are actually meaning the whole area. That's why I'm trying to I say it different now because I'm like, it's not the Poverello House.
Right.
Now, the Poverello House was bad. I didn't like them. I didn't
What-
like them because Cruz Avila was an... Can you guys on me?
Yeah.
Okay, Cruz Avila is an ass, you know, because any man that's going to walk through the door wearing $2,000 on his body at a homeless shelter is just a piece of crap to me. You know, you're in it for the money and stuff. So when he was directing there and he was running it, he might have been good at bringing in grants. So write him up as a grant writer. He doesn't need to be a director because he didn't have any personal skills with the homeless. He didn't know anybody on the street.
Okay.
Nobody even knew him. And how can you be a director at a freaking place where your front door is the hundreds of homeless?
Right.
But nobody knows you. So I was really against Poverello House because of the director that they had. And I had to start saying, well, it wasn't Poverello House. I never gave them a chance. It was the director and the way he was running it, the things that he was doing in there, you know, like when we found out about the fruits and vegetables that were donated to the POV, they actually, POV would turn around and donate it to the pig farms. So the people weren't getting that
Yeah,
food.
they weren't getting it. It was
No.
going somewhere else.
I mean, some of the bruised stuff and everything, you know, get thrown in a pot, like some vegan soup and all that stuff, and people would eat, and I didn't like the cold food that was getting served. I didn't like the way they were still being treated. People
Right.
say, enjoy what you got. But,
It's not even good stuff.
come on, sometimes in the back of a store, you can get better food out of the good dumpster than you
Right.
could there.
So you bring up food, and this is something I've wondered for years and years, is we know pretty much whether it's Fresno or any other place in America, a lot of food gets wasted, right?
Mm-hmm.
So why isn't a system set up to where all the food that gets wasted at the end of the day, why don't they collect it and just give it out to the homeless people that happen to be in that area?
Because with a lot of grocery stores, they have like a contract, and the contract states that they can't just hand stuff out because when you throw stuff away, you have to do inventory. And inventory is every single item.
Yeah.
You know, you can't just say I have 5,000 producers' milks. You might have a little jug and then a bigger jug and then a carton and a half gallon, and one might be 2%, one might be 1%. They have to, when they do inventory, when they throw stuff away at grocery stores, if they were to donate it to the homeless, they would have to inventory it.
So it sounds like they don't want to do the logistics. They don't want to
So
take
the
that
work.
extra time.
Yeah.
Well, okay, what
to do
about-
that.
But Target, I got to shout out Target on Blackstone
Shout
and
out Target.
Bullard up there because let me tell you,
Shout
they had an outage and they were going to throw away the food, and one of the sponsors was walking through the store and she found out, called me, I called them, and I was like, I'm nonprofit, can I get the food? I never in my wildest dreams, I got a little S10, and I thought, I was like, ooh, I get some food, I get some food. I pull up. Yes, it took us probably 8 hours because we had to do inventory. I wanted that food so bad for the
Right,
homeless
yeah.
that literally some of my friends, I bribed them, you know, I was like, oh, it's just a little bit. As soon as they got there, they were like, are you freaking
Yeah.
kidding me, Dez? Like, what the hell are you doing? We got to count all this shit. And your truck is full, and so we had to get a 17-foot U-Haul. Shout out Dari.
Shout out.
And he goes,
Shout out.
He came with the U-Haul and everything, and we had filled it up, and it ended up being $20,000 worth of food.
Wow, that they were just gonna
Throw away.
just
Wow.
like that.
That's in-
Imagine what they do on
Yeah,
a daily,
I was about to say.
monthly, yearly basis.
So that blessed the street family
Yeah.
members.
So shout
that
out
blessed-
Target on Blackstone. Shout out Target
Yes.
on Blackstone. Yeah.
Oh, yes.
Lord.
Oh, my gosh. That is the most... Go there. I know people don't say Target, but I'm telling you, the people that work in there, they're worth going there because
Right,
they
right.
are actually doing... That was the most amazing thing. Every other store didn't want to donate because once they have a power outage, which I learned, which I'm going to give the secret out, once you have a power outage, the stores have to throw away all their food.
So stupid.
Everything in the freezer, everything in stock, everything
And-
that has to be refrigerated has to be thrown away.
At least 75% of that stuff can be recovered.
Yeah.
Ice cream, okay.
Yeah.
But what, fruit, cheese, like, unless it's melting, it's
was
just,
a
it's so
2-hour power
ridiculous.
outage. That was it.
That's nothing.
But that's in their contract. They have to
Right.
follow the law, and that's what it states because it's dairy, because it's meat products, because all that stuff. So, I mean, that's what's amazing is that they did that because, I mean, $20,000.
yeah, that's a ton of
And it-
food.
Oh, yeah, it was a lot of work. I never wanted to see yogurt or freaking meals, family meals, and everything.
Okay, so let's get into your background and how did you become homeless?
Okay, so I had suffered domestic violence. Domestic violence led to a spinal fusion, which I had my spine and my spinal cord severed in half. Then I was paralyzed. I had to learn how to walk again. That took about a year because I was pissed off. I was like, the Creator has me here for something else. There's no way I'm going out like this.
Right.
I had a rough life already. There's no way I'm sitting down.
Yeah.
And then that led to being on disability, still being around abusive relationship, trying to flee domestic violence, not being able to because Marjorie Mason Center said, I'm sorry I'm putting you out there like that. I love you, Nicole, but I've got to tell my story. They said I had my car to sleep in, so I couldn't go into the shelter.
Now, go ahead.
I was going to say, is that a common occurrence? Or is that like...
Because we have to change the language in homelessness. Because when you get a grant and it says for domestic violent women, they don't include homeless women.
Why not?
It's the language.
There's so many women who end up, and men too, people who end up on the streets because they're fleeing things like that.
Yes.
That's ridiculous.
And what happens is they go back, because I went back.
Yeah, it's a cycle.
Yeah, so instead of being scared living on the streets, you go back.
Uh-huh.
You go back because you're like, screw it.
Right.
If you got kids, you're just like, oh, yeah, I'm going home.
Right,
Because I'm not
right.
going to have my kids on the street and
Right.
stuff. But I believe they're trying to change a lot of things. Also, the way the federal government in the states, they language the homelessness is that in order to receive any type of services, you have to be chronically homeless. Chronically homeless means that you have to be homeless for a year.
So what's under your...
Then you qualify for services.
Is that because they think if you're just homeless like a day or a week, you're going to go bounce back and go back
I
to where
guess
you
so.
lived? Or
Whoever wrote it up, I mean, it has to go all the way to state. I mean,
Right.
we really have to demand that they change the language. That homelessness is even one night on the streets,
Yeah.
To be, there's a lot of chronically homeless in all the language throughout a lot of grants and stuff. We have to change that. We have to really go to the state and ask them, like, let's change it. Let's go to Washington, D.C. Let's change the language all over the world regarding homelessness, because homelessness is domestic violent victims out here in the streets.
Yeah.
Homelessness is rape survivors or molestation survivors. You have a lot of abuse in the home where people start doing drugs to forget about it, but then get kicked out because they're using the drugs.
Yeah.
So now you got two problems that you got to fix. Not just the homelessness, but you got to fix the abuse and the addiction and stuff like that. So people have to realize people do not choose to be homeless. if you can show me one child right now that says, when I grow up, I want to be homeless.
Right.
I don't think anybody says that.
Right.
Something happens.
Mm-hmm.
Something happens in somebody's life. People don't just grow up and say, I just want to be an alcoholic. Something happened to make you drink.
Right.
To constantly, excessively drink, something happened because you're trying to bury it. The same with drugs. They're trying to bury something. So you can't just take them and say, oh, okay, well, we put you in an apartment and walk away.
Right.
No, if they have an addiction, let's offer those services too after we house them. Even after we house them, offer them services. Because if you don't, then their addictions are going to lead them back to homelessness.
Yeah.
So we have to have like a continued care for the homeless. That's the reoccurring. Now with COVID and the amount of evictions and everything, with the amount of rent going up, you're going to see hundreds more homeless out on the streets. We have absolutely no shelter beds. They're constantly full all the time. People can call shelters every single day. When you see a homeless, and I would tell people out there, if you see somebody homeless, besides calling the police and complaining, call the shelters. Call the shelters and ask any shelter. You have Turning Point, you have RH Community Builders, you have Fresno Rescue Mission, you have the Poverello House. So call those shelters prior to calling the police, because we don't need the police for the homeless, and ask them shelters, do you have a bed? If they have a bed, we need some confetti going off right now. Congratulations, you are the 100th winner. Oh my Go out there and ask one of those people, I had called the shelter and there is 2 beds available. Would anybody like to go? No reason to call a police officer that is for crime out to an encampment and say, there's them, that one right there. They lit a fire last night because they were trying to stay warm.
I hear that. I hear that one all the time. And okay, so this goes into my next question. Are you all for defunding the police or reallocating that money somewhere else, i.e. to homelessness?
I want my $12 million. That $12 million that the Fresno Police Department I want that. That's ours. That's ours. Give us $12 million a year, and we will build tiny community villages, permanent solution.
I saw. I'm not sure if you reposted it because I'm friends with you on Facebook, but it was a picture of the tiny houses for, I think, only like $250 a month. $12,000 to buy or to make, $250 a month. That, what was it, 19 million extra money that the cops get? That could go back into something like that. And I can almost guarantee that if people had a foundation, if they had a chance, a home, a tiny home, at least half of the homelessness situation would be cut in half, because that they need a foundation. Now yes, there are services that need to be put in place so that way they can upkeep it and so that way they can hold on to it. But I mean, at least like that's a start. And it's like when it comes to Fresno City and when it comes to the people who are on council, and I'm sure you work with them a lot, like, why aren't they investing in that? Why aren't they doing something about the situation that's going on? And it seems to us that it's very, I don't know, it's rational, it's logical to do something like that, but apparently it's not. But yeah, you're right. They don't want the change, but they complain about it. I listen to a certain radio station every single morning, and we probably know which one I'm talking about. And every day I hear the callers about how, homeless people, they choose to be homeless. They don't want to be a part of society. They don't like society. They don't like playing by the rules. Whatever problems they have, well, that's on them. They like it. Who likes being homeless? No one likes it. And it goes back to your point. There's a certain situation, a tragedy that unfolded in their life or lives, and unfortunately, they're on the street. But it's not because they want to be there.
They don't. And, you know, with everything that's going on right now.
Especially with everything.
This, and it's going to probably hit people hard, and it probably makes people really pissed off, what Dez always says, and she's going to say something to piss you off again. But with all the protests
Mm-hmm.
that have been going on, right? I was at every single one. Oh my God, I'm tired, y'all. I ain't coming out no more. I was at every single one. I support the freedom of speech. I support human rights. I support, treating each other equally.
Mm-hmm.
It made me realize, and it really hurts, that in Fresno, California, I actually stood there at one of the protests, and I was like, wait a minute, what's going on? Homeless lives are really, really invisible. And during the protest and everything, I was like, wait a minute. I told one of my friends, and I don't know how they feel. They said they understood me because I was really upset because they were like, why aren't you going out no more? And I was like, you know what I realized is that homeless lives really don't matter in Fresno, California. And they said, well, what are you talking about, Dez? You're doing a good job. You're doing this, you're doing that. I was like, no, because I was like, we've been marching. Black Lives Matter, Black Lives Matter, Black Lives Matter. What about baby Zari? The black baby that was born homeless and died homeless on the streets of Fresno last year, and nobody has said one word. So if Black Lives mattered, then why didn't baby Zari matter?
Wow.
Why did baby Zari not matter? Her vigil is coming up next month. It'll be 1 year. She was only 3 months old. Why did this happen in Fresno, California?
Do you mind explaining
What?
the situation?
Yeah.
Her mother was homeless. She was a foster kid. Okay, and in foster care, we have a lot of the youth that are out there, and they're from foster care. Once they age out, or they get aged out, or they become 18 years old, if you're aged out, you don't get any benefits. You don't get housing. You don't get job security. You don't get any of that stuff. So they age you out, which basically means 16, 17 years old, and then you're just put on the street. You got to fend for yourself.
Wow.
Who at 17? See, 17 years old, who's going to do that? 17-year-old, who's going to be just going from foster home to foster home to foster home to foster home? Who knows what abuse they went through?
Right.
How many different parents they had? How many different siblings they had? And then to be put at 17 years old on the street? Because the system, the foster youth system wants to age people out at 17 years old so they don't have the responsibility for them. They don't have to pay for them.
Right.
So let's go ahead and age them out, where people used to think that was a good thing. Because, I get to be on my own. But then once you step foot outside that door and you're like, wait a minute, where's dinner?
So
How am I going to cook? How am I going to eat?
So the process of them getting aged out is literally like on your 17th birthday, like, okay, bye. Just like, and with nothing there, just like let them walk out the door?
Yeah.
Wow.
I mean, people will age out. They'll age them out. I've had one of the youth that was aged out probably a month before their 18th birthday.
Wow.
Like, it's like the system is set up for failure for a lot of the kids that the government, these government organizations, the foster youth organization, you might have some amazing, beautiful parents. I mean, the commercials, they look really good.
Mm-hmm.
It makes me want to be a foster parent. It makes you think that they have these amazing foster parents. But why do we have so many youth? If I was a foster parent and I raised somebody for all them years, let me tell you, you're my child.
Yeah.
I don't care how old you are. 45 years old, I'm still throwing you a birthday party.
Yeah.
I'm still taking care of you. Just because you turn 18 years old doesn't mean you're not my child no more. And that's what is so cruel in this world. So Akifa was a foster child. She went through the system. She got aged out. So she had nothing out here. So she became homeless. In the group home, she had met her baby's father. He had ended up being in foster care still until he was 18. So he ended up getting a voucher to move into a place and all that stuff. And so that's how they got into housing, where she was homeless, but by the time he went ahead and left the group home, he got a voucher. They gave him an apartment. So she moved in with him. By this time, she's pregnant. She's having her baby. Then after going through all that, they were just left alone.
Mm-hmm.
No security, no nothing, no aftercare, no nothing. These are still children at 18 to 19 years old.
Yeah.
So during that time, of course, not having a job, having complications with the pregnancy, and the father wasn't working, they ended up getting kicked out of their apartment. They got kicked out of their apartment. Right when they got kicked out of their apartment, she found out she was pregnant again.
Wow.
As soon as they got kicked out, she found out then. So they went and stayed at a couple houses, like friends' houses, couch surfing and stuff like that. That wore out. Wore out because people get tired of other people in the house, especially you're pregnant again, you have this baby and him.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's a lot.
It
really is a lot. So they slept on the streets in front of the library, downtown Fresno, California.
Wow.
I sent my son down to downtown Fresno to go feed a couple of the youths that I had seen earlier that day. I went home and cooked, sent my son down there with the meals to go down and feed. He gave me a call, and he's like, Mom, he goes, I can't find Brian. He goes, there's this girl down here that was in a sleeping bag, and she looks my age. She looks younger than me. He goes, but she had a 1-year-old crawl out of the sleeping bag.
Wow.
And I was like, what? And he's like, yeah. And I was like, oh, my God. And he's like, can I give him the food? And I was like, give him the food.
Yeah.
Give him the food. Go through the truck, find anything, find warmth, find blankets, find all that stuff. So what happened when he pulled up right there on the grass by the library, she was inside the sleeping bag, and she was pregnant at this time. She had the baby and everything like that in the bottom of the sleeping bag. They had gone to a shelter, because I asked her what happened. They had gone to a shelter, but they were kicked out.
Why?
One girl was gonna touch her 1-year-old daughter.
Oh,
like
my God.
that's just how some cultures are. You do not touch my child
Yeah.
unless you ask for permission.
Right,
You don't grab her
right.
hand. You don't do nothing. And so that's the way she is. And when this girl went to go do this, she snapped as a mother. She's like, you don't touch my child. Well, the girl ran to the director, and she whined and said, I feel in fear of my life, and blah, 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 blah. She got kicked out. So they went for the other girl, which I know, which I love to death. But I was like, how are you going to have, excuse me, you guys, here goes all the hate. How are you going to have a white director have a white girl come in and say she's in fear of her life of a black girl? With a 1-year-old child, 3 months pregnant, and you didn't ask nothing. You didn't look at the film. You didn't do nothing. You just went to her and said, you got to go. Pregnant at 3 months with a 1-year-old child, and you kicked her out on the streets. You kicked her out on the streets. And this is the youth shelter we have downtown. And so when I found Akifa, she was out there for a little bit. And so I had went to the director, and I demanded to know why you kicked this pregnant woman that has a 1-year-old child. I don't care what anybody said.
Right.
Did you look at the cameras? Did you do this? Did you follow up on the report? Did you investigate it? Did you guys think about investigating before you kick this woman out on the streets?
Right.
Like, there's no reason I should find her out here. And this is during Thanksgiving and stuff, and it was raining
Wow.
hard. Imagine she was out there having to survive this life. So that's when I had met her, and she became a part of Homeless in Fresno, and she was always in my stories. All year round, in all my videos, you see me begging people, asking people for help, trying to get, some kind of resources out to her, trying to just get her some type of help. The only help that came is when police officers would walk the beat right there downtown Fresno. They would be walking from the police station over to the courthouse, and they would walk past her every day. They didn't offer help. They offered to call CPS on her if she didn't get up and do something and move.
Oh, my God.
If I see you out here again tomorrow, I'm calling CPS on you. It wasn't, I need to help her. I need to get her off the
Right,
streets.
right.
It was,
Like-
if I see you again out here with that baby, I'm calling CPS.
Right, criminalizing her before they even know what's going on. Right.
And so these two ladies had stopped by. They said they wanted to feed everybody. They had seen her and her pregnant. They ran up to her and started touching her stomach, and here she is. She's like, no, don't touch me. And they said, you know what, you're getting ready to have a baby and you're homeless. And she's like, yeah, so? And they go, well, why don't you give us your baby?
Wow.
She said, is you, like, she started cussing, like,
Yeah.
get away from me. Now she's terrified, because she's like, here's these two white women that come up and they
Take my
they're
baby,
nice,
yeah.
oh, God said
Right,
this, and
right,
da-da-da.
right.
Give us your baby. So she said, bitch, you crazy? She said, oh, you crazy, da-da-da-da-da. And she's like, well, she goes, you're homeless, and da-da-da-da-da. Didn't ask about baby Nas. They asked about the baby in her stomach. So she had words, and she cussed him out and told him to get the F on and blah, blah, blah. A couple hours later, she sees them drive by. It was getting dark. She seen them drive by in the car, and she's like, oh, my God, there's those ladies again. She's like, she's telling all the other street family members. They're, like, in protection mode. They're like, oh, no, they're going to kidnap her, take her baby. The stories start going. 2 minutes later, the Fresno Sheriff's Department shows up. CPS shows up. So instead of them ladies helping her, they ended up calling the Sheriff's Department, the police. The police called the sheriffs because it was on state property. They come out and everything with CPS, and they basically tell her, if you don't get up right now, get in this vehicle, and let us take you over to Fresno Rescue Mission, we will take your child from you, and we will go after the baby that's in your stomach.
What?
So she was like, I've been waiting for a shelter. She jumped in the car.
Yeah.
Because all this time she was asking for a shelter.
Yeah,
Right.
So she was like, her and her baby's father jumped up and they're like, heck yeah, let's go. You know, we're not going to fight you. We don't want to be out here.
Yeah.
It's raining, it's ugly, it's cold, we're starving. They jump in the car. They go to Fresno Rescue Mission. This is a family. The next day they wake up, they tell her, you got to go with us. He's got to go with them.
What?
Well, what are you talking about? We're a family.
Yeah.
They don't have family shelters here. They split the families up. They split them up. If you're a man, you got to stay at the Fresno Rescue Mission. Then if you were a female, they would take you over to the women's shelter with children. But if you had a child over the age of 13, he had to go to another shelter.
Wow.
So that's the reason why people say, I don't want to go to a shelter.
They don't want to get split
They
up.
do not tell you guys that. They do not tell you the reason why they don't want to go to a shelter. So this whole time while she's out there, we're still fighting. We're still trying to raise awareness, you know. She's getting ready to have the baby. She's getting ready. If you guys don't do something, I'm like, if she has this baby out here while she's homeless, I'm going to sue the city. And, like, I was mad. Just 8 months we fought and we fought and we fought and we fought and we fought. Then at the very last time when she went over to, they split her up. So she ended up going to the women's shelter. And then the father had to go to the men's shelter. So he ended up leaving the men's shelter because he's like, screw that. I want to go see my girl. You know, I need to go see them. So he ended up leaving that shelter, which bunked him down out of the bed now. He went over there to the women's shelter. Rescue the Children is where she was at. He had went over there, and they wouldn't allow him on property because he was a man. So she didn't want to stay.
Yeah.
Because how are you going to keep my daughter's father away from her because you don't want a man walking on property? This is a women's shelter. Yeah. You guys have me here to help me, but you're not helping me. You're taking my child away from her father because I'm here at this shelter.
Mm-hmm.
So, mind you, she's already, 9 months pregnant and all this and that. She kept complaining. She kept calling me. She's like, Dez, I need help. I got to go down the stairs. I can't do this. I'm carrying strollers. I'm carrying everything. She went into labor because they would make them leave. So every morning at this women's shelter, you have to be up at 6 o'clock in the morning. You have to sit down and eat breakfast at 6:30. You have to be out and off the property at 7 a.m.
Wow.
And these are women and children.
So you're just literally just sleeping there. You sleep, get up, and leave. Wow.
So they would have to leave all day, and you couldn't come back. Curfew, you couldn't come back until 6 p.m. It's either 5 or 6, but curfew was like at 9 p.m. So, and let me tell you where they have it at. There's not a bus stop sitting right on front. You're walking like a good half a mile to a mile to get to the first bus stop. Mind you, pregnant with the 1-year-old, strollers, the baggage. So every day she would have to go downtown. Every single day she was going downtown. They were like, oh, we can take you to MAPS. And we can get you to, what am I going to do? I'm 9 months pregnant. Go get a job where? Go look for an apartment where?
I hate to cut you off, but I think we only have a few minutes left, and I really want to hear more of this. I hope you come back. Rest in peace to that child.
Yes.
That this is
Baby,
horrible. But you totally enlightened both of us. Have definitely opened our eyes. Really quickly, what can you say about Project H2O and how the community can volunteer?
Well, Project H2O was started with $2.50, believe it or not.
Wow.
Yes, and that's how much a case of water costed 5 years ago.
Mm-hmm. I think,
being homeless, I was like, there's no water. We don't have no water. So I was begging people for $2.50. And then I wanted to share with the community. So now every single year what I do is I ask the community to get involved with Project H2O. And it's about either you get involved with the team and say, hey, I want to be a part of Project H2O. Either we provide you with the water that is donated to the organization, or you go ahead and you buy your own. But what you do is you freeze it. It's triple digits. People are out there suffering. So you freeze it, you go and take it out, you put it in a cooler in your car. You can be at work all day, get off work, and then go on your lunch break. Whatever the case is, but frozen waters because they do melt fast.
Yeah.
It's about fruit, tangerines, bananas, apples, peaches, plums, fruit, anything cold. Popsicles. We hand out popsicles a lot and stuff because it's so hot and stuff. Watermelon is like really good because you're not really hungry. You don't want nothing heavy, but watermelon fills you up and is hydrating at the same time. So anything that's very cool and refreshing is the best thing, is what goes with Project H2O. But it is all about water because water is life. Without water, nothing on earth will survive.
You're absolutely correct. I think we have 60 seconds left.
Oh, wait a second.
WANIF.org. Sign up.
I'll say
Okay.
any.
Any shout out you want to give?
Yeah, shout outs.
Yeah, shout out to my kids.
Shout out.
Shout
out.
Julian and Shy
Shout
Shy.
out.
Shout out to you guys because, without them and learning the things that I have, I probably wouldn't be where I am. And, shout out to the community. You guys are amazing. Thank you guys for all your donations. Without Fresno community, we have some beautiful people here. Let me tell you, and I've met them. So thank you.
Yes, and thank you, Des, for being
Yes.
on this. Des, thank you.
Yes.
Thank you.
Well, thank you guys, too. I met some
Yeah.
new friends.
Yeah. And shout out to Central Valley Talk for having us.
Bye,
Rest in peace
Central
to
Valley
Steve.
Talk.
Yeah, rest in peace to Steve.
Yeah,
Yes,
rest in
thank
peace.
you, Des, very much. We really, really, really appreciate
Yeah,
it.
thank you.
You have given a lot of insight. So thank you so much.
Yeah,
You're
thank
welcome.
You. Thank you.
Thank you guys for viewing and listening, and we will see you on Friday.
Catch y'all later. And police brutality.